Welcome to the Human Cloud Podcast, the spot where leaders come to drive the freelance economy forward. So today we have Liza Rodewald, CEO of Instant Teams. Instant Teams is such a fascinating application of freelance models. It is a talent platform with over 60,000 military spouses, specifically for customer experience. Now, one of the things you're going to keep hearing is that Liza and her co-founder Erica were able to understand this very underutilized talent pool, which was military spouses, and understand where they had such a unique advantage, which was customer experience. And you're going to hear me say a couple times that they can enable a Delta customer experience for every company. What I mean by that is, if you ever want to have a good conversation, go call the Delta customer service line. It is incredible. And the reason is they have individuals usually sitting in the Midwest. They are extremely nice. They're extremely creative and good at problem solving. That is what her talent pool of military spouses also provide. Now, quick things to listen for as well. Listen to how Liza is able to go from the abstract, basic sort of foundational understanding of a freelance model and dig into the use cases that it provides for customer experience. Specifically, when talking about the remote capabilities, they enable a 24/7 coverage of US support staff, right? So you can call at 1 a.m. and still get a US military spouse because they might be based in Germany or Asia or somewhere else. The second thing, high retention. Because military spouses are usually going wherever the husbands are or their partners, there's very high retention when you have them with opportunity, and they are insanely good at creative problem solving, building relationships. So there's a high retention, specifically a 7.5% churn compared to the industry standard of 30%. Last thing, here it's about the customer satisfaction, right? I'm going to leave it there. And the last thing I want to tell you is that really dig deep into Liza and her founder journey, as well as how she thinks about business and solving problems and building a company around that. All right, sit back, enjoy, and most importantly, go drive some change. All right, Liza, this has been 3 years in the making, 2 years in the making.
Wow.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
And don't worry, there's going to be a nice fancy intro in the beginning. But when I look at founders in general, right, like not just the freelance space, but founders in general, if I'm being honest, there's very few that I look and go, God damn, how'd they do that? Typically, I look at founders and I go, okay, another's going down the venture roadmap. Or okay, another one's going down the lifestyle roadmap. And I look at you, and when did we meet, Liza? 2020, was it? Was it 2019 or 2020?
It was pre-COVID? I think it was like right before.
It was a couple months before COVID.
Yeah.
And basically my thought was, wow, that is a massive problem. She, excuse my language, but she must have some massive nuts if she's going to go after that. And let's see what happens. Was my feeling on it. And then I think it was like, we had kept in touch, but like 2 to 3 years later, I forget what it was. It was either like the employee headcount or the raise or just the customer success stories I was hearing. And I was like, okay, yep, the nuts are bigger than I expected. And so this is going to be so fun. There's going to be 2 directions that we're going to go down. And for you listeners out there, I'm so pumped for you listeners. The first is going to be, military spouses, which we can go all fluffy as we want, right? Like you're empowering, you're creating jobs. I'm sorry, I'm going to be my very, very selfish kind of tech self, and I'm going to get straight to the core of, we're going to hit on military spouses and the impact that they have for businesses. And specifically, I believe in really, really learning from you that military spouses are one of the most underutilized asset our global economy has. And the equivalent that I use is, pre-Uber, cars were sitting in your garage for 92% of the time. Mm-hmm. Well, military spouses are sitting in a position not in your company 92% of the time when they need to be. And you're an idiot if you don't pay attention to this insanely underutilized asset. So we're going to talk about that. And then second, I'm going to try to get you to be as, what's the word, like gloves off about the founder journey. Because, everyone, both the enterprise leaders right now and the founders themselves, such a wealth of knowledge. So I think, do you want to give a quick 30 to minute and a half intro on yourself and Instant Teams, Liza?
Sure. Happy to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Liza Rodewald. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Instant Teams. And we are a customer experience talent marketplace that connects companies to military spouse talent all across the globe. We started in 2016, raised a couple of rounds of funding, and have been scaling and growing the business ever since.
Incredible. Could you, and I usually don't make people do this, but yours are so impressive that I'm like, let's hear it. Could you tell us like the number of individuals of military spouses, just rough number of clients, company size? Because I really want the listeners, I want you to hear that you're not the small startup anymore, right? We are over that bridge. But yeah.
Yes. We've definitely grown. We have 68,000 military connected people on our platforms using our products and services daily. We've raised over $16 million in venture capital. We've used that to kind of scale the company on that side. We have hundreds of employees. It changes because of the business model that we have. So like the freelancer community, we have a lot of W-2s that come in and out on contracts for different customers that we work with. But we have accounts that have as many as 5-10 people on, and accounts that have 200 plus people on them. So we've definitely been able to scale into that next phase of the startup where we have great product market fit. And we're starting to just double down on that and continue to grow and serve the community.
And when we met, you were in Hawaii, weren't you?
I was.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of the themes that I think is going to be a theme that we keep hearing throughout this episode is how to actually run a remote company and run a remote customer experience. You had a forcing function, right? That you were in Hawaii. And so you had to get good at this. And it's funny, we talked pre-COVID. So when we talked, it was, man, these people will not understand remote. They don't believe it. And then boom, here's a global pandemic, right? So if we could, let's start with a little bit of your background, but more from the lens of what was that hook that got you to say, hey, I'm going to go cut my teeth and take on this massive, at the time, probably dumb undertaking. I'm going to go start a startup, specifically focus on this, but a little bit on, your background, but mostly like what led to the hook and what was that hook of you and starting Instant Teams?
Sure. So I have a background in software engineering, and I ran my own software company. I started my first company probably 3 years out of college. So I have a degree in computer science, and always kind of liked the entrepreneur's journey. So I've built 2 or 3 lifestyle, like you mentioned in the beginning, kind of businesses starting off. And I was running my software company 100% remote. So the tech space has been in the remote work for a long time, right? It used to be called like telecommuting. It has different names. But it was much more receptive to that remote distributed environment. So I was really used to that. And then I met my husband and I became a military spouse. And we moved into like our first military area. And every single spouse would just ask me, Liza, like, how are you working? Like, what are you doing? How can, you help me also be able to maintain my career? And that's when I saw the problem on that side. And as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I work with companies and businesses every day that are looking for talent. I hire talent for my own software development firm, my teams, always looking for great ways to bring in like really high quality, high retentive individuals. And I was having a hard time doing that. And I was using some of these freelance platforms to try to grab people, but I was getting really inconsistent results with it. And so those 2 ideas kind of were in my head. And I'm like, I think I can bring these things together. I think there is a market here where these companies, much like myself, I didn't think about the military spouse community, right? I just didn't know. I think about the military, and I was happy they were serving our country, and I was really proud of my husband for doing that as well. But I didn't think about the underutilized, untapped talent resources that were just sitting here because of the lifestyle that they lived. And so when I saw that, and I knew my own need as a company owner, I thought, okay, I think there's a play here where we can start something. And I met Erica, my co-founder, in a very short amount of time, who was doing some similar work. And her and I decided to come together and start. And so part of the story is, we wanted to figure out what the use case was before we went all in. So I worked my software company for a good year and a half. She worked for another job while we built the beginning of Instant Teams, so we could figure out what is the business case we can solve.
And let's get into let's get into that year and a half. So you made a very was it always called Instant Teams? By the way,
we started off.
Yes, that's what I was hoping.
Tell us.
Tell us. What was it? Gig military spouse gig. What? Let's hear the evolution of names.
Yeah, the name of it was called Mad Skills, actually.
That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, and worked really well, except for on the customer side, everyone thought we were in the entertainment industry.
I can see that. Because it was like, what, Mad with 3 Ds or something?
No, it was just spelled regular Mad, SKILLS. But for some reason, everyone thought we were like doing entertainment talent. And what we had was, okay, let's figure out, we're a marketplace. There's two sides of this market, right? So let's figure out, are the military spouses interested in this remote work, this whole opportunity? This is way before COVID, right? And then, I had the idea of Instant Teams. So I actually bought this domain like 15 years ago. So I had the idea for this software play in it. And so Erica and I decided, I don't know if Mad Skills is Instant Teams. I'm not sure, but let's start it. Let's figure it out. So we named it Mad Skills. We started working about a year and a half into it. We started to see the product market fit. And that's when we both decided, okay, this is a scalable company that can be $1 billion company, right? This is Instant Teams. And so we decided to rebrand. I went through the Founder Institute as an accelerator program to start building our network. And that's kind of when things started to take off. But I want to talk a little bit about product market fit, if that's good for you.
Please. That's actually where my next question was going to be. Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's interesting. As we dove into the military spouse community, what naturally came out of that was, when we're working with companies, we had a really unique offering that just wasn't in the market. So we could build 24/7 support teams with all U.S. citizens, but they're located globally in every time zone. So we could do that 24/7 support with an entirely U.S. based workforce, even if they weren't necessarily sitting in the United States, because they're sitting in bases all over the world that are considered U.S. property. So that was super unique in things like fintech, insurance, cyber, healthcare, where these companies have to use a U.S. based workforce for their federal regulations and compliance. And so we started to find that as a unique fit. And then the other side of that, what we saw was our military spouses were highly retentive. And in the support industry, that's a very high turnover area. So typical turnover is 30%. Our Q1 turnover was 7.5%.
Damn.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that, Liza? So average was what? And then yours was
over 30%, 30% plus. Ours 7.5. So from a business case, all the costs that customers are spending, training, hiring, onboarding, and they're losing 30% of their workforce, our workforce is staying. So they're saving all that money.
And let's dig. So let's dig. So the only brand, well, okay, I have two. I have two brand affinities. Well, I have three. Okay, we'll include Instant Teams with this. I will. You already know how much I love you guys. Okay, but so my two brand affinities. The first is John Deere. They built the first tractor. Just love them. Okay, nothing related. Second though is Delta, and the reason is every time I call Delta, I end up having a conversation that I feel like is therapy. And so I call with a problem, and actually now I get to the point where I call before I even book, and I'm not going to lie, I fall in love with the people. And I learned when I started to ask that they were sitting usually in Louisiana, Minnesota, or somewhere in the South, right? And when you first told me about this, I went, wait, so you can enable every company a Delta customer service and
Mm-hmm.
customer experience, and why the isn't every single company using this? Right?
Yeah.
Like this is
Yeah.
this is gold. And so let's get very, very tactical. So
Mm-hmm.
24/7 support teams. Tell me more. What do you mean by support teams? What does this really look like?
Yeah. So we kind of bucket everything into the customer experience lifestyle. So anything that touches the customer experience journey, we build teams for companies around. So that could be just like you're talking about the Delta people answering the phone calls. It can be people demoing software. It can be the people that are offering renewals of software systems and upgrades, sales, account managers, anything that's kind of touching that overall life cycle of the customer are the types of teams that we build. And I think you hit on something really interesting because we didn't know like how to frame it in words, but we have learned over time, like those military spouses have very unique lived experiences. And that's what enables them to connect to you when you're calling and you have a problem. They've lived in multiple states. A lot of them speak multiple language. They're well traveled. They're used to being in high stress situations. They're used to constant change. And so they are able to connect on a level that's instant and really deep with the customers that they're serving and the people they're interacting with on a daily basis, which is very unique to this demographic and this population that you don't see, just in working with people in general.
Can I get? I'm going to get really, really nerdy. And for you listening, if you're managing a budget related to this, I'm literally talking directly to you, and I'm going to sell the crap out of you, Liza, but I'm going to say it in a way that's very nerdy and very technical. And so, part of what I hear you saying is that the mechanics, and we call it freelance, but in reality, we're talking about digital networking technology. The mechanics of it is that the match or the connection, there's a zero marginal cost to create that. The results of that are that rather than sticking to a very, very, very small scope of requirements, so usually like years of experience, skills, and companies, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Instead, you can get very granular, very detailed, and hyper relevant. And part of what you're telling me is that you can go to an agency who's going to sell you, right? Like a customer
Mm-hmm.
support MSP or agency, and they're going to say, look, we have all these diverse skills. That might be true, but the actual match needs the technology that uses digital networking technology to actually do this at scale. And part of what you're
Mm-hmm.
telling me when we pull it back to military spouses as an underutilized asset, and it's probably the most important part, is that that asset of a military spouse has so many lived experiences that your technology, meaning the Instant Teams technology, can match in a way that you can't create a personal connection
Mm-hmm.
in really any other way. So that's part of what I'm hearing. How off am I? And am I getting way too technical?
No, you're right on the money with that. Like the cultural experience and the ability to integrate into the customer's culture is extremely important on the support side. And that's what they're able to do so well. And it's a unique way in how we work with customers is enabling that process. So instead of putting up a wall between instant teams, outsource employees, and the customers, you know, internal culture, we blend the two together. The customers have contact with the people. We don't put walls in. They integrate into the customer's technology. We're true partners in it versus just a vendor or a provider of the
Yeah.
service.
And you can do that because you have only 75% churn. And
Yeah,
so the people that work on instant teams are loyal to instant teams. They're not saying I'll go wherever the highest buck is, similar
right.
to. So, okay, I have a question that the reason I'm asking it is because I really want to see the experience from start to scale of a client relationship. And the question I'm going to ask is, how come you didn't just build Upwork for military spouses? Meaning, how come you didn't just build a self service marketplace that a company could post a job and then a military spouse would take it from there? I assume that it's not just that. I assume there's heavy management, there's
Mm-hmm.
heavy support. I assume that. But if we could, like, let's act like I am the Delta head of product
Mm-hmm.
and I really want to explore how do I get started? What do the first 30 days look like? What do the first 3 months look like? 6 month, 9 month? If we could we
Mm-hmm.
kind of dig into the customer experience?
Yeah, for sure. Depending on the company size, it's a little different. So Delta is an enterprise customer. So this would probably be a 9 month in conversation that I'm working. If we're
Oh,
mid
goodness,
market,
I
we're
know.
going a little faster on that. But how the process is pretty simple. There's three ways to work with us. One is the BPO side, which is the pure outsourcing side, which we can go through that as a customer experience. We also do temp to perm. So if a customer has somebody on our outsource team and they're like, man, Sarah is killing it, we want to bring her internally and promote her, then we allow that 1,000%, which most BPOs and outsource companies do not want you to take their talent. We do, because we want the career progression for the military spouse, right? We want them to be able to move up in the companies. And so we have that. There is a direct hire option, but it's much more curated. It's not an open market. And we do that for multiple reasons, but one is to protect the military spouse community itself. So we did start in the early days. We had an open job board. And then what we found was there's people that kind of wanted to take advantage of the community a little bit, posting jobs and opportunities that were like low pay or, anyway, just not good fits for our community. So we figured out early on, like a curated process was definitely the way to go in all of this. So we built the skills-based hiring platform. So if a customer comes to us and says, you know, I want to hire a team. I want to talk through building my customer experience. Say we're doing, outbound to schedule demos for the customer, right? Then we would just jump on a call. We would figure out what they're looking for from a cultural fit, what they're looking for from a skills-based fit. We do all skills-based hiring, meaning everything we do is an assessment. It's not a huge matching AI algorithm that we put into play. And this is because, again, military spouses have disconjointed resumes because they've moved around a lot. So if you put them in a regular ATS system, they just sort of get kicked out. It's like, oh, inconsistent, job hopper, right? So they don't make it to your hiring manager's desk if you're using those kinds of systems, right? So the advantage coming to us, besides the fact that we've built the community here, is that we can actually give you access to the great talent within it. So we would go through the skills-based matching, and then we start building the funnel. So our technology does that. Our teams on the back end start doing that. And then you also get to curate your own e-interviews. So you can pick your own 5 questions. We have our own that we do as well. And then if you want to interview them, you are more than welcome to do that. Depends on the team size. So a lot of the smaller companies come with us and they do teams of 1 to 5, and then they scale the team from there, right? So we're used to pilots. We're used to like this try before you buy. Like, we want to test you guys out, see how good this talent really is. And from there, you can either choose to interview, or we select the people, onboard them to your team, go through the training process, and then you're in a partnership with us, right? There's constant communication, constant touch points, training, different things that we provide. We provide community resources for all of the people that are on those accounts. So we're really involved. We have team leads, we have QA people, we have supervisors that sit on top of those teams that work with the management of the company as well. So it really is a curated relationship versus a transactional one-time event.
Yeah, I love the the very, very simple 3 step process. And as we know, especially with enterprise, you can sound as smart as you want, but in reality, there needs to be a bullet or a bullet line, and that individual needs to be able to tell their boss, right, in one bullet line what it is that you do.
Right.
And so to me, it's a very, very simple 3 step process you just laid out, which is identify the use case, skills based match, and very, very, very small but huge point that military spouses don't make it through the ATS. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, when I was really at Microsoft, I'll never forget one of the smartest engineers. He brought up this concept where it's like it's easy to go from 0 to 97%, right? It's impossible to go from 97.5 to 99. And the result is that eventually we start over engineering the existing processes. And I think that's where we stand with traditional hiring right now is it's
Mm-hmm.
like We're just strapping on these incremental solutions. And what you're doing is you said, screw it. We found a talent pool that's underserved that no one knows how to match, and we know how to. So we have to go beyond the ATS. So I want to make sure I call that out.
Right.
And then step 3 is the partnership, which this is usually the hidden sort of needle mover for the leaders to actually drive adoption across the company. Is you're going to be there, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not just going to match and leave. God forbid something goes wrong, right? It's going to go wrong. Mm-hmm. It's just part of the process. You're going to be there as a partner. Now, let's get even deeper into the use cases. If I could double click. So you mentioned setting up or running demos through an outbound cadence. What are some of the highest, most popular use cases that you see yourselves executing? And then if we could, how does this tie to the company's high-level strategy? For example, what are they saying? What OKR are you fitting to? And what are they telling their boss when they talk about you?
Yeah, I think there's been, and for good reasons, like a lot of focus on the customer experience, the customer journey, and how that's interpreted. Like you had such a great experience with Delta, right? And now you're going on and talking about it over and over and over again, right? And that's what every brand wants, and that's where they're focused on. But a lot of times brands look at that and they, instead of going with the highest quality, they go with the lowest cost. Because they're like, okay, well, we can get a lower cost solution. We're not the cheapest solution. I will tell you that. I will tell all the users out there, because we're a quality and retention play. We're not like labor arbitrage, right? We're not like the lowest cost denominator. But when you even out and you look at the business cases, like we save money over time and our teams outperform. You might have 50 people on an outsourced team here, but our 20 people will outperform them, right? And so from once you get in and look at the economics, it actually is a cost savings, but when you're just looking at dollar per hour, it's not apples to apples in those situations. So some of the use cases, we do really unique things. So one of the biggest cyber security companies in the world, we do data breach detection for. So when somebody feels like they're being cyber attacked, they call our people, and our people determine whether or not it's a threat or not, and whether or not to escalate that to the engineering team. So this customer, their problem set was their engineers were getting woken up in the middle of the night all the time with things that weren't actually threats. And so they needed something to sit in between these two components to really assess, to be able to problem solve, not just like call center routing, but just be able to actually talk through the customer, dig in and determine, is this an actual issue, or is this something that, maybe it's a scam email they got or something else that's not an actual cyber threat, right? So that's like a very unique use case that our population does really well at that. Other situations are very inbound customer support oriented for the same reasons, right? So you have highly qualified, well-spoken, multilingual individuals that can really walk through and solve the problem. So we set like above that initial tier of just call center, like I'm answering the phone and I'm routing it to a place. Like we set right above that layer with, higher quality problem solving, the ability to kind of take some of those tier escalation supports out and combine them into one. So that you're not, as a customer, also not like being transferred to 20 people before you get your problem solved.
Yeah, absolutely. I got a very, very technical question related to that. And the question is how long does it take to onboard a instant teamer to be able to have the level of execution that the client needs? And the reason I ask that is that one of the number one blockers that I run into from an enterprise adoption perspective is, leaders will say, I'm willing to invest in the onboarding for a full-time employee. And this is a total myth, right? But it's what they believe. I'm willing to invest in the onboarding of a full-time employee because, according to them, they'll be here. And they think of a freelancer, or they think of someone part-time or a talent marketplace, and they think to themselves, why would I onboard someone who's not going to be there tomorrow? Now, you and I know that that's not true, right? 7% churn rate. So you and I both know that's not true.
Right.
But unfortunately, I'm assuming that you do hear this a couple times. And so what does the onboarding look like? Are they, purpose fit, ready to go? Is there, say, a month of, typical, like in consulting world, discovery or onboarding?
Mhm.
What does the onboarding look like?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the scope of the project or what we're talking about. But from our perspective, we're really fast. So 2 weeks, we can have people ready to go.
Wow.
So instant teams, we're pretty instant in that regards. Now the training part, that is up to the customer. Depends on like how much training needs to be done for like whatever product they're supporting, whatever business line they're in. Some of them are longer training cycles. I would say the most we've seen has probably been 4 weeks, 6 weeks of a training cycle. Usually it's shorter. But the beauty of our teams is they integrate into your team. So again, they're ready to go. They can run side by side an existing individual or existing manager, or we have the train the trader model. So if once our teams get going and there's 20 of them now and you need to scale up to 60, we take the training in-house to our teams and then we spin them up in the background so that when you're ready to add people, they're just ready to go. They're ready to go immediately work. So for our bigger customers and contracts, we work in that capacity so that it makes that onboarding time really fast.
So I'm going to bring up a point. It's not a question, and I wonder your take on it. So the biggest shock that I had when I started working, this was like over 10 years, right? And so we're going back. But I remember the biggest shock I had was that the first 6 months, 3 to 6 months, I was learning so much, and I was like a sponge, right? I would write everything down. I would keep my notes, and it hit me. If I wasn't there, how is this knowledge being retained? And so I remember, and you know this, like as a typical
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneur, right? You're like, okay, cool, I'm going to create a company related to this. And so in my eyes, I was like, all right, I'm going to create a psychology company that keeps knowledge internal, right? And then what I learned was it's really hard if people keep changing. There's no software that can really keep the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the learnings that I've had in our space is that one of the things I love about a freelance models is that the individual might change, but the documentation and the
Mm-hmm.
process
Mm-hmm.
forces you to really, really have to be explicit and intentional and not lose these learnings. And
Mm-hmm.
so, do you see that working with instant teams, working with an instant teams talent pool, do you see that you're able to keep the knowledge going even when the people change? Or what do you think about the brain drain of knowledge?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I see it a lot, especially in our mid market customers that come to us because they might have a team of 10 or 20 already, but their processes are kind of all over the place. And so one of the things we do is help them get that all in one, get the knowledge, right? All in one spot, make the trading modules consistent so that everyone's getting onboarded in the same way. Everybody's sharing the same knowledge and then continually updating it. So we kind of take that on as we scale the team for them. That way there is a centralization of any knowledge, any new things that we learn. And we really pride ourselves in like giving that feedback also back to our partners, like how the teams feel about the work they're doing, how the teams like all of those kinds of things. We have that open communication back and forth so we can build the playbooks the best that we can and that we can also, increase the retention of the people on there. Because if everyone's like, hey, this process that we're doing is taking us 10 steps when we could condense it to 3, like we'll give that feedback back to the partner and say, hey, is there ways for us to improve this? Because this is what we're hearing on our side. And they'll be like, oh, okay, yeah, that's an easy switch. And then again, the knowledge has changed, the process is improved, and we're just getting better and better.
I love it. Let's. I think one of the things that we've seen when we look at good talent platforms, and I really want to double down on good talent platforms. One of the things that we see is typically there's founder market fit, meaning the founder themselves was an agency before.
Mm-hmm.
We always see there's industry expertise, and we're starting, and we commonly see now, and it's really interesting that consulting and talent platforms are kind of merging. And so the idea of, hey, let's bring the consultants in, let's spend 150 to 1.5, Let's have them build up our strategy and our playbooks. And then they leave, right? And they leave and they give us a PowerPoint. And then I look at good talent platforms like yours and I go, huh, they could easily charge, 150 to 1.5 million to come in and do a workflow engagement audit or do a, BPO playbook. But you can also give the talent, right? So you can actually do
Hmm.
the execution, not just a
Right.
PowerPoint.
Right.
One, do you see that? And two, tell us about, and this is getting really technical. Tell us about the business model. Do you charge for that strategy consulting? Is it built into a margin? Yeah, let's get into that.
Yeah. I probably should charge for that now that you're saying it.
I know I know you should.
But it is part of what makes us sticky in an organization, right? Being consultative in nature, technology can play a great role in automation, but there's like that last mile that I think you really need the people in, and that's the same kind of business process we have. Like there's AI and all these things coming out in the support realm, which are great and can automate those low level tasks, but you still need the human interaction, that human touch. So that's the same way our teams operate. We come in very consultative because also if we can make the process better, it's just going to be a better relationship. It's going to be a better partnership between the two of us, right? Because if their processes are not together, when we put people on the project, they're not going to be happy. There's going to be issues because it's going to be too many things not on the same page. And so we benefit from doing that too, as well as the customers. So when we work with an engagement, there's not an implementation fee that we charge. Customers just get charged the bill rate of the productive hours that the individuals are working on their platforms. And that's how, we build on that side. If there's more structure needed, so say now you have teams of 200 and we need to put in team leads and team supervisors, that's also just built into the bill rate that you pay. So everything we put into that one bill rate on the individual's time.
So I'm going to throw out I'm going to try not to get too business schooly, okay? Like I hate myself for even going down this rabbit hole. But I'm going to throw something out that I think talent platforms like yours, I think they might be the future of SaaS. And what I mean by that is, everyone wants to have a SaaS business model. They
Mm-hmm.
all want subscriptions. They all want recurring revenue. And one of the most difficult things is that, as a consultant, yeah, we can make a good amount of money up front, right? But we typically don't have retention and subscription. And so talk with any investor and they say services are crap. What's your software, right? What's your
Mm-hmm.
SaaS? What's your
Mm-hmm.
stack? And I think part of what you're telling me is that, okay, we've figured out how to go beyond technology, which we all know, right? There's more than technology. Tech
Right.
is a one little piece. But the SaaS equivalent to subscription for you is the long-term execution. And so you
Mm-hmm.
are willing to invest in the relationship up front because you're going to be able to own the
Mm-hmm.
long-term execution, which is your subscription, which is equivalent to a subscription model.
Yeah.
Is that, as the CEO, is that the bet that you're making?
Yes. So definitely upfront investment on our side, long-term partnerships and capabilities on the other side. What's interesting about what you said too about SaaS companies is once you get in under the hood, there are a lot of people doing a lot of manual things in these SaaS companies. And I didn't realize that when I was starting out as a founder, right? Because I'm like, how do these people have all this automation already? Like I'm working my butt off trying to get it, and then you look under the hood and you're like, oh, you've got 20 people. Or they come to me and like, hey, we need to hire 10 people because they got to process this stuff. I was like, I thought that's what your software did. It's like, well, not yet.
Yep, it's a dirty secret. It's called mechanical turking. It's behind every single and the joke of SaaS is like, yeah, we don't need people to scale. And you go, really? You got 5,000 employees? What do you mean you don't need people to scale? Or like Microsoft, right? You got
Right.
150,000 employees, 300,000 basically if you count the external workforce. What do you mean? What do you mean you can scale without people?
Right.
So no, it's funny. Now let's I want to give you the stage to show off. What I mean by that is, okay, we understand the process. I think if I were to summarize where we've gotten so far, someone from the outside might go, oh, that's cute that you are giving military spouses a job. And I'll tell you what, Liza, the amount of good intentioned marketplaces that's as far as they go. And I almost feel bad, right? It's like we get a lot. We see
Hmm.
like refugee marketplace, right? Like we're a marketplace for refugees. We're a marketplace for underdeveloped countries. And you're like, hell yes, how can we help? But then you go, you need to tie to something more, right? People they're using their philanthropy budget to hire from there. But so we
Hmm.
hit the head of
Hmm.
listen, this is not a let's get military spouses jobs. This is a profitable, this is a ROI driven, this is a business, right? That makes a massive
Hmm.
impact for the end users, meaning the clients. Okay, we hit on that. The second part of what is the hook for the client? Well, there's this massive, massive, massive underserved population that is able to give you a diversity of experience, a personal connection with your customers, and insanely strong retention and loyalty based off the 75% churn. Okay,
Hmm.
cool. Next part, we hit on the business model. You're willing to make an upfront investment because you're going to have a long term relationship through the execution. Okay, boom, I'm sold, right? Now, the last thing I need to tell my boss that if we don't do this, our competitors are. And so, please, can you show off? And if you can't list any names, that's great, but we can also just play the abstraction game, whichever you want. I know
Hmm.
NDAs, especially in our space, are very strict. But so, can we please just show off? Please tell us your favorite sort of customer wins, use cases, you name it. Stage is yours, Leslie. Please, please, please show off.
Yeah, these are always hard because not all customers want you to say like how much you're improving their business and helping them, right? They
Of
want to have
course.
it
Their
together.
board
But
will be pissed if they find out it wasn't them. I get it.
yeah. But some of our, strongest partners that I can talk about openly, Aflac is a big partner of ours. We do a lot of claims processing on the insurance side and work on their customer journey as well. And so they've been an amazing partner of ours on the enterprise side. We also work with a company called Alight, which does most of the North American large businesses benefits processing. And so all the major companies use this company to administer their benefits. And then our team is on the background actually talking directly to those big enterprises employees about their benefits and how to access them and to do all of those kinds of things. And then on like the smaller scale, which is still not small, but Expensify is one of my favorite customers on the fintech side. Our teams do sales demos for their software. They do the onboarding and upsells, renewals, that kind of thing. And they're just a great team. They have a great culture. Our spouses love working with them. We also worked with Seesaw, which is an ed tech platform that a lot of schools use. So we have a lot of military spouses that were teachers that came onto that account, love that from the educational experience. I mean, we can work across a lot of disciplines and we can stand up teams that are 200 plus, like I said before, all the way down to 1 to 2. So we like both of our partners. We like the enterprises, for the large scale projects. And then we like the mid market and smaller companies that are really starting to put their customer experience teams and processes together so that we can become a growth partner for them as they grow.
Incredible. Listen, we have 10 minutes. We've been way too positive. Let's hit the head on blockers, on
Yeah.
barriers. What are the common things people say? Why wouldn't I go with instant teams? And then we're gonna jujitsu into why that is a bullshit view.
Sure. So I would say the number one, if we get into a conversation, the number one reason why people might be hesitant or say no is the cost perspective. So if they're leaning towards offshoring a solution, we cannot compete in cost. We're just not a price play. We're not the most expensive on resource that there is. So we're not like super pricey from that perspective. But if you're going to say, okay, we want to offshore this to something, in another country, the bill rates are just not in the same ballpark. So if people are super price sensitive, we're probably not the best player.
Gotcha. Okay, so price no. What else do you hear? What are some of the common? I'll throw a couple out, right? Like hell, we were just in Germany opening their first ever freelance conference, and hear common things like, "Hey, these individuals, they're outside the box. right? Why would I hire someone that's outside the box? Asia, commonly, I think, still we hear things like, why would someone give up the iron rice bowl, right? They must be unemployed or they must be not good enough, right? Why would they give that up? In the US, we commonly hear things like, well, I can't, it sounds bad, but I can't control if they're not my employee, right? How do I want to email them at 10 p.m. I want to just make sure that I know they're working, right? And if they're not my employee, I can't do that. So what are some other things that you commonly hear?
I would say for our unique community, one of the biggest common misconceptions is that they don't want a full time job.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Yeah. So we'll hear like, oh, well, we have these things we need, but we don't think they'd be good fits because, most military spouses don't want full time work. And I'm like, well, where do you get that information from? Like 80% of our workforce are working full time, right? So it's a big misconception. And yes, there are some spouses who want more flexible work so they can drop off, pick up kids. They are a lot of times, if they're active duty, they are, the sole parent in the house for a little while. But the majority of spouses want a career. They want full-time work. They want progression in this. And so they're not just looking for like pick up work every now and then kind of thing. They're mostly looking. And that's why our model is like W-2'd, full-time, part-time, because those are the types of opportunities the community is really looking for. So that's a misconception we hear a lot whenever we're talking to them from the business case, because they think, oh, well, I have these things, these high level things for them to do, but they won't want to do that. And I'm like, they most certainly will. And, out of the 68,000 that we have on our platform, we're in 48 states, 6 different countries, and over 60% of them have bachelor's degrees and beyond. Right. So we're talking about highly educated, highly career motivated. They're ready to plug in to an opportunity. They just move so much that that's been a challenge. And so personally, when I became a military spouse, I moved 6 times in 7 years.
So crazy.
So had I not had my own stuff, I would have been in that same situation. Right.
Yeah. No, one of the quickest areas that we're seeing growth is the word that gets used is fractional, but I think what it's just like kind of like a band-aid word to describe people that can take on the whole scope. And I always use the example of, listen, not every, but I'm going to say every top talent, they want to be the executive, right? They don't want to be sitting as an IC in a research group, not actually seeing the light of day. They all want to have impact. They all want to have the progression. They all want to make sure that what they're doing really, 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 really touches, either customers or their clients. And I can't stress enough the what you said about giving them the larger project, right? In my experience, what's that saying that's like, if you want to get something done, find the busiest person. It's kind of like if you want to get something done, no matter how large it is, go to a freelancer, because no one, or not freelancer, but go to someone who has to actually scope the work, right, or drive the client relationship.
Right.
Shit's hard. Shit's hard.
Yeah.
Listen, we have 4 minutes left, Liza. I want you to pick whatever question you want, and then I want you to answer it. And yes, you're seeing the lazy CEO in me, but one thing we know as CEOs is there's a lot of people a lot smarter than us, and so you are a lot smarter than me. We did not hit on the founder journey, so if you want to touch a little bit on that or not, that might be episode 2. But I literally want to give you 4 minutes. Pick the question you want to ask yourself, and then answer it.
Not to put me on the spot or anything.
And I didn't prep you. I did not prep you for that. I just, there's so much. I think one of the most interesting things for me is what's interesting to you. Meaning, what is it right now that is back of brain, top of brain for you? What are you losing sleep over? Like, what is it that when your mind wanders, what are you thinking about? And I'm trying to kind of get at that because, listen, everyone needs to learn from you, right? Everyone listening to this needs to learn from you. So I'll frame it in that way. Like, what is keeping you up at night right now? What is the one question you really want to answer? Um, I'm going to leave it as ambiguous as that.
Okay. Um, well, the founder journey would be like a book. So I have been actually Erica and myself both have been like putting stories and things that happen because there's a lot of journeys along the way, right? A lot of failures, a lot of learnings that you go through for that. I think what has my attention now is like we're post Series A, so we're in that growth stage mode, right? And so to get from multi-millions of dollars to $100 million, right? This is like a really hard path that not a lot of businesses make it, right? And so I have to spend time really getting out of the day to day and focusing on the strategy and the big picture because those things are what move you to the 100 million, right? And so that occupies my time right now as I'm going across I have a bird's eye view. I have a whole team now, right? I didn't used to have a whole team. I have a whole team I have C-suites that I manage. I have VPs that I manage. I have directors under there. Like there's a lot of people in play and like keeping the vision, even of what we just talked about, like the skills-based hiring and the mission and those things that are what actually make the magic of the company happen. It's easy to lose when you get into scale growth mode, right? Because it's like, all right, now we got to take it to this next level. And sometimes those magic pieces get left behind. And so Erica and I, as founders, we've coined our own phrase. It's called founder magic. And it's the areas we see in the business that still need that founder magic, that touch, that special like growth mindset, hacking kind of what you did in the early stages, right? When you just had to be super bold and figure things out, right? And so if I could ask myself a question, it'd be like, okay, Liza, where is the founder magic at this stage? Because it's important at every single stage as you start to grow. And so Erica and I have been working on some of those strategies in the build and where we can add, that special lens that you can lose. And I think become sort of some of the downfall of companies trying to get from where we're at now to this next big stage is like losing the magic of what made you what you are, but also knowing where to grow from there.
So this is why I said I'm going to shut up and let you ask the question because you just gave me some founder magic. And what I'm going to add on top of that is that, what technology has really done, especially when we talk about workforce tech, is it's forced the individual to be front and center. And I don't mean this in a cheesy way of like, I found myself, I have work-life balance. No, I don't mean it like that. I mean it purely in that you have to be unique. You have to have something special beyond just your skills. And the reality is for the past 150 years, you just had to be special enough to get into the job. And then you were kind of set, right? And then you'd get stuck in a box and you'd look like just like every other anchovy next to you. And you couldn't stick your head over this, right? You just had to make sure your head looked just like everyone else's. And the reality is when we're talking about what you're doing, when we're talking about this future work, it really is all about you have to be the most unique at your skill set. When we look at what Instant Teams, what you're doing, is you are creating the most unique way to drive good customer experiences. That is what you're doing. You are not just another BPO. You are not just another marketplace, right? You are the most unique way, and some would argue the best way to drive customer experience, all back to the beginning, because you've been able to organize and mobilize this insanely underutilized asset in military spouses. So I think, Liza, you gave me the founder magic. I just tried to spit it back at you at like a C level, maybe even a D minus. But I just want to thank you. I want to thank you so much for hopping on. And next time we'll talk about the founder journey that led to the founder magic. But most important question, where can our listeners find you and where can they find Instant Teams?
So Instant Teams on all social channels as Instant Teams. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, You can see us all there. Me personally, Liza Rodewald on LinkedIn. There's only one of me, I think, with my name, so I'm pretty easy to find. I'm sure in the show notes you can see how to spell my last name because it's not the easiest. But connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk to anybody who's interested in potentially building some CX teams from our military spouse community. Always open to those conversations and would love to meet them.
Perfect. Liza, thank you so much for hopping on.
Thank you. It's been fun.